welcome back. As promised, I have another Reels reflection with Nia. Yesterday, I attended my second class for Lumia coach training. Again, a little recap. I am in the Essentials class, or course program right now, which is the general life coaching classes. We have them every Tuesdays and Thursdays, so yesterday was my second day. If you see me looking down, I brought some notes this time on some key takeaways I had from the class. The class title was, I had it at the top. I had it at the top of my head. The Art of Questioning. That's right. So thinking about questioning, asking questions, we last night were able to go over the different types of questions that would ultimately shut down a conversation or make a conversation inconsistent. These questions would be close-ended questions, running on questions, so questions within questions within questions, and then we had answers in the form of a question. So for example, if somebody asks you, do you think you may be able to reframe that situation so you can have a more positive outlook on it? That question is, you're answering the question by saying, do you think you could reframe? So reframing, giving you advice on how to answer a question would be a conversation killer. It doesn't allow people to think about what they're thinking about. It doesn't allow people to explore their goals. So we were just going over the different questions and kind of reframing them to be more open, provide autonomy to the person we're conversating with. And so we found that how and what questions are a little more friendly. And they do allow for a client to have autonomy when we're asking these questions. So when I ask you, how are you doing? Your response more than likely is going to be a critical thinking answer. Hopefully you're going to think about that question and reflect on actually, how are you doing? Another open-ended question that would lead to more conversation would be, how would you feel if you were able to forgive your father and assume he was just doing the best he knew at the time? Instead of, can you forgive your father and assume he was just doing the best he knew at the time? The how opens up for you to think about, can you, would you, do you want to? And then you can start to critically break down that question. So I really enjoyed last night's class. We went into breakout sessions again, and I again had those nerves, but this time I led with the questions. So I went ahead and I stepped up, and I kicked it off with a couple of questions, and it felt really good. And we were having a great conversation. There was 3 of us, and I found myself, after asking a few questions and getting answers, at one point I didn't know what to ask anymore. And that kind of pinged on me. I was like, wait, why did I just stop having curiosity? Where did the curiosity go? I think when I responded, so the lady I was asking the question to responded with something that I knew a lot about. So mind you, I used to work in landscaping. If you go to my last video, I talk about how I used to work in landscaping. And she was talking about how she's a coach consultant in the construction industry. And she was talking about how typically the men on construction sites have a hard time asking questions. You know, they are used to deadlines, hard deadlines. You know, everything is quote unquote mansplaining. So it's like, get it done, toughen up, keep pushing. There's not a whole lot of, well, what's going on here? How are we able to move the pin forward? How can we meet this deadline? What are the things that are coming in between us meeting the deadline? And so she is ultimately building her repertoire for being able to coach in the construction industry and eventually move on to her own practice in another industry. And so when she answered with that, I instantly went into, oh, I know all about that. And I told her, I said, yeah, I worked in landscaping, and when I'm thinking about the guys that I worked with, it was very mansplainish. There was not a whole lot of, you know, empathy there, or concern or curiosity. It was just like, we're on the job site, let's do this. But after I answered, or I responded to her response, I quickly hit a flat line. My curiosity ended when I no longer had to reflect on the situation. When I stopped reflecting on the situation, my curiosity ended. So as coaches, we're ultimately building ourselves up to have a deeper curiosity for our clients. You know, how are you doing? How is everything going with your life? You know, what are some of the goals that you're seeking to meet? What are some of the obstacles that you're running into? Explain to me what it feels like when you run into these obstacles. Explain to me how it feels when you set a goal and you meet the goal. You know, it's these things, continuing the questioning instead of responding to the response. And so I challenged myself and I said, okay, I need to start asking more questions from now on. So anytime I'm engaging with others, my standpoint is going to be ask as many questions, get as curious as you can, because it's the only way you're going to develop your questioning skills. We learned that why questions, or could you, or would you, or should you questions are questions that lead to either leading the person down to the answer that we want them to have, or it's very closed and can be judgmental. So I appreciated learning that, because I ask why a lot. And I mean it with well intention, but not understanding that it could bring on a level of judgment or disagreement. And when you're asking questions, ultimately you're wanting to get answers. You're wanting to know something. And if you're asking questions in the form of I already know, then you're really not curious about that situation. So yeah, Lumia's curriculum is specifically based on positive psychology. So it's really breaking down people's thought life, and understanding how positive influence will provide your client with the desire to want to keep going and create a habit out of meeting their goals. Again, like I said yesterday, we can't, it's not enough to set a goal and meet the goal alone. We've got to challenge ourselves to become the person who is able to sustain whatever we're seeking, because we're not seeking it for, temporary fulfillment. We're seeking these goals because we want to live a more sustained, fulfilled life. And so the art of questioning, and I would challenge you, even if you don't want to be a coach, even if you're listening to this and you're wondering why it seems like all the conversations you have, you feel misunderstood, unheard, undervalued, I would challenge you to think about, how do you show up in conversation? Do you show up trying to give advice? Do you show up trying to lead somebody in the direction that you want for them to go because it makes you comfortable? Do you show up cold and unempathetic? How are you showing up? First, look at how you show up in conversation. Second, I would challenge you to, when you do question people, try a how or a what. How can I be more present for you? Or if somebody says, I need more of this, how does that look for you? What does that look like for you? Describe what it would feel like if I could, so that way you can take that and glean what you will from it and utilize it. I'm a little long-winded again today because I was excited, but my reflection from the art of questioning is that questions are very powerful. They create curiosity, and they deepen rapport between the conversationalist. So even when we're asking ourselves questions to see where we're at in life, or to just get to know ourselves better, I would say be kind. Ask open-ended questions to yourself. How and what? Again, I thank you for showing up to another Real Reflection with Nia. I'll be back on Wednesday, and I hope you have a wonderful week.